Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm sure the whole House will want to join me in wishing a very happy Thanksgiving Day to all our American friends and family, and a happy big birthday today to the clerk, the Joe Root of the parliamentary estate, with huge thanks for his stylish and expert half-century, I should say. Mr. Speaker, a man of your wide culture and extensive learning will doubtless be familiar with the film Mad Max. I am no expert, be it said, but the image it conjures up of a desolate, chaotic landscape with wreckage strewn everywhere is the perfect metaphor for the government's recent budget. Take hospices, for example. In Herefordshire, we are blessed to have the extraordinary St Michael's Hospice. St Michael's supports hundreds of inpatients a year with end-of-life care and thousands more as outpatients and with visits in the community. It has a dedicated staff assisted by some 800 volunteers. This is extraordinary. I shudder to think what it would cost for the state to provide this kind and quality of care, certainly more than £20 million a year. But what has this Labour budget done to St Michael's Hospice? The changes to national insurance alone will cost the hospice an extra £250,000 next year. But that is only part of it, because at the same time the budget has also directly and indirectly pushed up the wage bill by a further £450,000. That's £700,000 annually in extra cost, a vast amount for an organisation that offers incredible care and that actually saves the NHS £20 million a year. There will be hospices in almost every constituency, or affecting the interests of almost every colleague in this House. This disastrous outcome was clearly never intended by the Treasury. It's another completely unnecessary blunder with potentially tragic consequences. And as with the GPs and pharmacies, as with mental health and social care charities, no compensation whatsoever has been offered for this tax raid. When will the government publish a proper impact assessment and explain why not? Now, Mr. Speaker, there's a direct link here to the issue of assisted dying. In the words of the Health Secretary, no less, I do not think that palliative care, end-of-life care, in this country is in a condition yet where we are giving people the freedom to choose. That care is now being deliberately worsened by his own Chancellor. Personally, I feel very strongly pulled in both directions, by both sides, on the issue of assisted dying. But on one thing, no one can be in any doubt at all, that the government has no business trying to rush this legislation through this House by proxy. The text of the bill was published barely 2 weeks before we vote tomorrow. No impact assessment and no legal issues analysis has been published. Far from public debate preceding legislation, legislation has preceded debate. This is completely the wrong way round. We can be perfectly clear about this. All members of Parliament were recently sent a dossier by the promoter of the bill entitled Your Questions Answered. Unfortunately, however, far from answering key questions, the dossier fails even to touch upon a whole series of important issues. These include the bill's impact on the medical profession and the relationship between medical staff and patients, and its impact on the provision and regulation of the different drugs and drug cocktails required, the record to date and the protocols to be used in case an initial attempt at assisted dying fails, what the inevitable for-profit industry exploiting the new law will look like and how we should feel about it. And as the very senior judge, Sir James Munby, has highlighted, a host of questions about the impact of involving the judiciary in the process and the balance of probabilities test for coercion. Most profoundly of all, what choice and dignity actually mean in different contexts. None of these matters is even mentioned in the dossier purporting to give the answers. Whatever one feels about the assisted dying, about the issue of assisted dying itself, and as I say, I feel very pulled in both directions, this absence of debate, especially with so many new members in the House, is a matter of the gravest public concern. And as the House well knows, the House itself, the government itself, is all over the place on this issue. In asking for an assessment of the bill's likely impact on the NHS, the Health Secretary was doing exactly the right thing, preparing civil servants and clinicians for what could be a huge change and asking them to look at a crucial question that has not even been addressed, let alone properly answered. As for the Justice Secretary, she was attacked by none other than her own Labour predecessor, Lord Falconer of Thoroton, for imposing her views. But his lordship somehow missed that she was also making an argument, that it was inappropriate in principle for the state to get involved in the provision of what many term assisted suicide. This too is yet another issue that has barely been discussed, and in closing, Mr. Speaker, let me say that the Right Honourable Lady, let me ask the Honourable Lady whether she shares my view that it is a tragedy that colleagues are being asked to vote without a full and proper consideration of the vital issues I have mentioned.